Dear future wife, there were moments in my life when love came close. Close enough to feel real. Close enough to feel possible. Close enough that it would have been easy to say yes. And in those moments, I didn't walk away because I was afraid. I walked away because something inside me knew it wasn't you. That doesn't mean those women were bad. It doesn't mean they weren't kind, intelligent, or beautiful in their own ways. It means alignment matters more than attention. And I learned that the hard way. Future wife, there were seasons when I was tempted to settle, tempted to choose comfort over clarity, tempted to accept affection that felt good but didn't feel grounded. Because loneliness can whisper convincing arguments, it can make almost feel like enough, it can make potential feel like destiny. But I didn't want almost. I wanted alignment. I didn't want chemistry without character. I didn't want connection without conviction. I didn't want affection without foundation. So I walked away, not dramatically, not bitterly, just clearly. There were women who liked me, women who could have built something with me, women who were willing, but willingness alone isn't compatibility. Attraction alone isn't sustainability, and timing alone isn't destiny. I asked myself difficult questions. Do our values truly align? Can I respect her consistently? Will our emotional rhythms complement each other? Do I feel peace or just excitement? Because excitement fades. Peace remains. Future wife, I turned on conversations that were easy but shallow. I turned on connections that were intense but unstable. I turned down affection that felt flattering but fleeting. Because I wasn't searching for attention, I was protecting preparation. There were nights when I wondered if I was being too strict, too discerning, too cautious. Friends would say, she's good, why not just try? But trying without clarity leads to regret. And I didn't want regret. I wanted certainty, not loud certainty, not dramatic certainty, quiet, grounded certainty, the kind that doesn't argue with itself, the kind that doesn't feel forced, the kind that feels aligned. Future wife, I could have chosen comfort. I could have chosen convenience. I could have chosen someone who fit my life partially, but partially isn't forever. Partially eventually breaks. I wasn't waiting for perfection. I was waiting for peace. Peace in conversation, peace in values, peace in vision, peace in character. And when I didn't feel it, I didn't compromise. There were women who challenged me in good ways, but our core directions were different. Different views on discipline, different expectations for family, different approaches to conflict, different definitions of loyalty, and I knew that differences in surface preferences can work, but differences in core convictions cannot. So I walked away, not because I was arrogant, but because I was intentional. I didn't want to build something that would slowly erode under misalignment. Future wife, there were moments when affection felt strong, chemistry was real, conversations flowed, but something deeper was missing. Stability, shared vision, long-term compatibility. And instead of ignoring that inner warning, I respected it. Because I wasn't just dating for today, I was preparing for forever. I didn't want to wake up years later realizing I chose convenience over calling. I didn't want to look into someone's eyes and feel doubt buried beneath comfort. I wanted conviction. There were women who could have loved me well, but they weren't you. And I believe love is not just about being loved. It's about being aligned. Future wife, turning down love that wasn't easy. It required patience. It required self-control. It required trusting timing. It required believing that something better, something truer, existed. There were seasons of loneliness, seasons where companionship would have been easier, seasons where settling felt tempting. But I refused to build a life that someone would have to endure instead of enjoy. I refused to choose someone I wasn't fully convinced about, because choosing someone halfway is unfair. Unfair to them, unfair to me, unfair to you. You deserve to know that when I choose you, it's not because you were available, it's because you were aligned. You deserve to know that when I say forever, it's not built on desperation, it's built on discernment. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you because I learned something important. Peace is non-negotiable. If something disrupts peace in the beginning, it won't create peace later. If something requires constant justification, it won't suddenly feel secure. If something forces compromise in core values, it will fracture under pressure. So I chose patience over panic, clarity over chemistry, conviction over convenience. There were women who admired me, women who appreciated my discipline, women who were ready for commitment. But if my spirit didn't feel settled, I couldn't move forward. Because marriage is not built on admiration alone, it's built on alignment. Future wife, when I finally meet you, I don't want you wondering if you were second choice. You won't be. Because I didn't collect almosts. I didn't build temporary attachments while waiting. I didn't leave emotional debris behind. I walked away queenly, respectfully, decisively, because I was protecting space for you. I didn't turn down love because I was emotionally unavailable. I turned it down because I was emotionally disciplined. Disciplined enough to know that affection isn't the same as compatibility. Disciplined enough to recognize that not every good option is the right one. Disciplined enough to wait for alignment. There were moments when I questioned myself, wondered if I was too selective, too idealistic. But then I realized selectiveness isn't pride when it's rooted in clarity. It's wisdom. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you because I didn't want to bring you a divided heart. I didn't want to meet you still emotionally attached to someone else. I didn't want to carry unresolved feelings into our beginning. I wanted to meet you free, clear, certain, and that required saying no to what wasn't aligned. I don't regret those decisions, even when they were lonely, even when they were misunderstood, even when they felt inconvenient. Because every no refined my discernment, every no strengthened my patience, every no protected your place. When I finally meet you and I look into your eyes, there will be no hesitation, no comparison, no doubt, because I didn't settle before you. I waited through clarity. I walked away through conviction. I chose discipline over desire. I chose peace over pressure. And when I choose you, it won't be because you're better than the rest. It will be because you're aligned with my values, my vision, my discipline, my peace. You'll feel different. Not louder, not more intense. Different in steadiness, different in clarity, different in peace. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you because I wanted to arrive prepared. Prepared emotionally, prepared spiritually, prepared mentally, prepared practically, not searching, not confused, not divided. Ready? And when I finally say yes to you, it will carry weight. Because I know what I walked away from, I know what I refused, I know what I protected, and I protected it for alignment, for clarity, for forever. So if you ever wonder whether you were just timing, you weren't. You were discernment, you were conviction, you were the reason I didn't settle. And that is why when I choose you, it will be fully, without hesitation, without comparison, without regret. Because I didn't turn down love. I turned down what wasn't you. I need to go deeper than I did before. Because turning down love isn't something people talk about honestly. Most people assume if two people like each other, that's enough. If there's chemistry, that's enough. If there's effort, that's enough. But I learned something that changed everything. Enough isn't alignment, and I wasn't looking for enough. I was looking for peace. There were women who were kind, women who were thoughtful, women who could hold conversations for hours, women who admired my ambition and respected my discipline. On paper, things looked good. From the outside, it made sense, but inside, something felt unsettled. Not chaotic, not dramatic, just unsettled. And I've learned to listen to that feeling, because when you ignore quiet misalignment in the beginning, it becomes loud conflict later. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you because I started asking myself a different question. Not, can this work? But is this right? Almost anything can work with enough effort, but not everything is meant to last. There were moments when I could have chosen to move forward simply because nothing was wrong. But nothing being wrong doesn't mean everything is right. And I didn't want to build a future on technical compatibility. I wanted spiritual alignment. There were conversations that flowed easily, but when we spoke about deeper values, marriage, family, discipline, faith, loyalty, conflict, subtle differences appeared. Differences that didn't seem urgent in the moment, but would become foundational later. I couldn't ignore them. Because small misalignments and core values don't disappear, they multiply. Future wife, I remember sitting alone after ending something that could have worked, and the silence felt heavy. There was no dramatic breakup, no betrayal, no toxicity, just clarity. Clarity that this wasn't the woman I was meant to build forever with. And clarity sometimes feels lonely. It would have been easier to stay, easier to adjust, easier to compromise. But compromise in personality is different than compromise in principle. I can compromise in personal. I can compromise on preferences. I can compromise on style. I can compromise on hobbies. But I will not compromise on peace. There were women who loved intensely. But intensity without stability doesn't build forever. There were women who communicated beautifully. But our visions for life moved in slightly different directions. There were women who respected me. But I didn't feel the deep conviction to lead them for life. And leading someone without conviction becomes burden. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you because I didn't want to marry someone I had to convince myself about. I didn't want to wake up wondering if I settled. I didn't want to silence subtle doubts, because subtle doubts grow louder over time. I wanted certainty that felt calm, not loud, not emotional, calm. There were moments when loneliness whispered, "You're being too selective. You'll regret this," where if she was the one and you overthought it. But discipline answered louder, "Peace matters. Alignment matters. Conviction matters. I chose conviction. Future wife, understand this clearly. I wasn't rejecting people. I was protecting purpose. I wasn't running from commitment. I was running toward clarity. I don't believe in staying somewhere simply because it's comfortable. Comfort can become complacency, and complacency creates quiet regret. There were times I watched others settle quickly, engage quickly, commit quickly, and for a moment, I questioned my patience. But then I reminded myself, quick commitment doesn't equal lasting commitment. Longevity requires alignment, and alignment requires discernment. Discernment requires patience. There were women who met most of my standards, but something subtle was missing. Shared depth, shared rhythm, shared long-term peace, and I refused to ignore that absence. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you because I didn't want you inheriting emotional baggage. I didn't want to meet you half attached to someone else. I didn't want to compare you unconsciously to a past almost. I wanted to meet you whole, clear, undivided. Every no protected that. There were moments when I felt tempted to compromise simply because she was good, but good isn't the same as right. And right feels different. Right feels settled. Right feels settled. Right feels steady. Right doesn't require mental gymnastics. Right doesn't require constant reassurance. Right doesn't require ignoring intuition. Future wife, I remember one conversation in particular. Everything seemed aligned until we spoke about discipline and lifestyle. The gap wasn't dramatic, but it was consistent. And consistency and difference matters, because marriage magnifies habits. If two people handle stress differently, it matters. If two people handle money differently, it matters. If two people approach conflict differently, it matters. And I couldn't ignore those signals. It would have been selfish to stay when I wasn't fully convinced. Selfish to give someone half certainty. You deserve full certainty. There were women who felt deeply connected to me, but I didn't feel the same depth of clarity. And staying without equal conviction is unfair. So I walked away respectfully, not cold, not harsh, just honest. Future wife, turning down love that wasn't you shaked me. It strengthened my discipline. It refined my discernment. It clarified my standards. It taught me patience. It showed me that attraction is common. Alignment is rare, and I'm waiting for rare. And I'm waiting for the kind of connection that feels calm, even in silence. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself. The kind that feels like shared direction, not just shared interest. There were times when I feared that waiting too long would cost me, but settling would cost more. Settling costs peace. Settling costs clarity. Settling costs internal respect. And I refuse to lose internal respect for temporary comfort. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you, because I value forever too much. Forever is not something I approach casually. It's not something I approach casually. It's not something I gamble with. It's sacred. It requires conviction. It requires alignment. It requires discipline. I don't want to marry someone I hope will grow into compatibility. I want to marry someone who already aligns in principle. Growth will happen naturally. But foundation must exist first. When I finally meet you, I don't want there to be comparison in my heart. I don't want there to be lingering attachment. I don't want unresolved what-ifs. I want clarity. I want peace. I want certainty. Every love I turned down protected that. So if you ever wonder whether I waited intentionally, I did. If you ever wonder whether I chose patience over pressure, I did. If you ever wonder whether I guarded my heart so yours wouldn't compete with past memories, I did. I turned down love that wasn't you because I believe in choosing once, fully, without doubt, without reservation, without mental escape plans. And that kind of choice requires discipline beforehand. When I choose you, it won't be out of exhaustion. It won't be out of fear. It won't be out of convenience. It will be out of convenience. It will be out of conviction. And conviction doesn't waver, because I didn't say yes to almost. I waited for alignment. And when I find you, I will know the difference. Not because it's louder, but because it's peaceful. And peace is how I recognize you. There's another layer I need to tell you about. Because walking away from something that could have worked is heavier than walking away from something that was clearly wrong. When something is toxic, leaving is obvious. When something is unhealthy, leaving is necessary. But when something is good, just not aligned, leaving requires discipline. And discipline is lonely. There were women who would have loved me faithfully, women who were stable, women who were emotionally intelligent, women who saw potential in me, and sometimes that made it harder because it's easy to reject chaos. It's difficult to reject comfort. Future wife, I didn't turn down love because I was chasing a fantasy. I turned it down because I learned to listen to the quiet voice of peace. Peace doesn't shout. It doesn't overwhelm. It doesn't intoxicate. It settles. And every time I considered moving forward with someone who was new, something inside me felt unsettled. Not dramatic, not alarming, just slightly misaligned. At first, I ignored that feeling. I thought maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was expecting too much. Maybe I was guarding too hard. But over time, I realized that discernment feels different than fear. Fear feels anxious. Discernment feels calm but firm. And what I felt was firmness, a gentle but unmovable clarity. Future wife, there was one connection in particular that challenged me deeply. She was strong, disciplined, independent. We respected each other. We understood each other's work ethic. On paper, everything made sense. But when I imagined building forever, not just months, not just years, something felt forced. Not wrong. Forced. Like two strong personalities moving in parallel, but not truly merging. Like two visions that could coexist but not intertwine. And coexistence is not the same as unity. Unity requires alignment at the root. I realized something important in that season. Just because two people can function well together doesn't mean they're meant to build life together. Functionality is surface. Alignment is foundation. I chose foundation. Future wife, there were nights when I questioned whether I was sabotaging something good, whether I was letting go of a woman who could have been good enough. But good enough is not forever. Forever requires conviction. Conviction is different than attraction, different than admiration, different than compatibility in hobbies or humor. Conviction feels like this quiet certainty. I don't have to convince myself. And every time I had to convince myself, I knew it wasn't you. There were women who brought out good parts of me, women who inspired growth, women who supported my ambition. But if I'm honest, I didn't feel the deep-rooted peace I was looking for. Peace that says, build here. Peace that says, commit here. Peace that says, commit here. Peace that doesn't fluctuate based on emotion. Future wife, I learned that excitement can be misleading. Chemistry can be intoxicating. Affection can be persuasive. But peace is the only thing that lasts. And peace never argued with me. It either settled or it didn't. If I had to rationalize the relationship constantly, it wasn't aligned. If I had to downplay subtle differences in core values, it wasn't aligned. If I had to silence intuition to keep moving forward, it wasn't aligned. So I stopped silencing it. There were women who were ready to build, ready to commit, ready to move forward. And sometimes I felt guilty walking away because I knew they deserved clarity, and I couldn't give them half-hearted certainty. You deserve full-hearted conviction, not hesitation masked as hope. Future wife, turning down love wasn't about arrogance. It wasn't about believing I deserved better. It was about believing forever deserves alignment. Alignment in vision, alignment in discipline, alignment in emotional rhythm, alignment in conflict resolution, alignment in faith, alignment in loyalty, not perfection, alignment in loyalty, not expect you to be flawless. I don't expect you to be flawless. I don't expect you to match me in every personality trait, but I expect peace. Peace when we talk about the future. Peace when we disagree. Peace when we're silent. Peace when life feels heavy. Every time I didn't feel that peace, I chose patience instead. Patience is misunderstood. People think patience means waiting passively. But patience is active. It's saying no when yes would be easier. It's walking away when saying would be comfortable. It's trusting timing when loneliness whispers compromise. Future wife, I could have married someone already. I could have built something that looked stable from the outside. But I would have known inside that it wasn't fully aligned. And living with quiet doubt is heavier than temporary loneliness. Loneliness is uncomfortable. Doubt is corrosive. I chose discomfort over corrosion. There were moments when friends celebrated engagements, when weddings filled my calendar, when people asked, when is it your turn? And I smiled, because my turn isn't about timing pressure. It's about readiness, and readiness requires alignment. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you, because I want to look at you one day without hesitation, without comparison, without what if, without lingering questions. I want to stand in front of you completely certain. Not because you're perfect, but because you're aligned. There's something powerful about choosing once, choosing fully, choosing without backup plans, choosing without mental escape routes. But that kind of choice requires discipline beforehand. Every no I said strengthened that discipline. Every walk away refined my standards. Every moment of loneliness clarified my conviction. I didn't want to meet you divided. I didn't want to meet you wondering about someone else. I didn't want you competing with memories. I wanted you stepping into a space that was protected for you. Protected by discernment. Protected by patience. Protected by clarity. Future wife, when I finally recognize you, it won't feel chaotic. It won't feel like adrenaline. It won't feel like convincing myself. It will feel calm. Calm in conversation. Calm in vision. Calm in shared values. Calm in direction. Calm in commitment. And that calm was what I was waiting for. Not a louder love, a steadier one. I turned down love that wasn't you because I believe in choosing forever once. Not repeatedly, not conditionally, once. And when I choose you, it will carry the weight of every disciplined decision before you. You won't be the result of exhaustion. You won't be the result of settling. You won't be the result of timing pressure. You will be the result of discernment, the result of patience, the result of conviction. And that's why when I say yes to you, it will be unwavering. Because I didn't wait for perfection, I waited for peace. And peace is how I'll recognize you. There's one more layer beneath everything I've told you. Because turning down love that wasn't you wasn't only about alignment, it was about responsibility. Responsibility to you. Even before I knew your name, there were moments when I could have continued something simply because it felt good, because it felt comfortable, because it was easier than being alone. But comfort without conviction becomes compromise. And compromise at the foundation becomes cracks later. I didn't want cracks. I wanted clarity. Future wife, I didn't turn down love because I was emotionally unavailable. I turned it down because I was emotionally accountable. Accountable to the future I was building. Accountable to the woman I would eventually stand in front of. Accountable to the kind of husband I wanted to be. Because I believe something deeply. The way you date determines the way you marry. If I entertained uncertainty casually, I would carry that pattern into marriage. If I tolerated misalignment early, I would excuse it later. If I compromised peace at the beginning, I would struggle to reclaim it later. So I practiced discipline before commitment. There were women who were patient with me, kind to me, supportive of me. And sometimes walking away from someone kind hurts more than walking away from someone wrong, because kindness makes you question yourself. It makes you wonder if you're expecting too much. But I wasn't expecting perfection. I was expecting peace. Peace that didn't require constant reassurance. Peace that didn't fluctuate based on mood. Peace that didn't need mental negotiation. And when that peace wasn't there, I couldn't pretend it was. Future wife, I remember one relationship that almost became serious. Families were aware. Plans were subtly discussed. Everything seemed to move forward naturally. But every time I imagined forever, something inside me hesitated. Not fear, not immaturity, just hesitation. And hesitation in something sacred is a warning. Marriage deserves certainty, not emotional hope. Certainty. I realized something in that season. If I have to silence small doubts to move forward, those doubts will amplify later. And I refuse to build something that requires silence at the foundation. There were times I felt misunderstood. People assumed I was too focused on career, too guarded, too selective. But they didn't understand the weight I place on commitment. Forever isn't casual to me. It's covenant. And covenant deserves clarity. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you because I refused to enter marriage hoping things improve. I want to enter marriage already aligned. Improvement will always happen. Growth will always happen. But foundation must exist first. I didn't want to marry someone I needed to change fundamentally. And I didn't want someone marrying me hoping I would change fundamentally either. Alignment in values. Alignment in discipline. Alignment in values. That's what I was guarding. There are women who brought excitement, but excitement fades. There are women who brought admiration, but admiration alone isn't enough. There are women who brought affection, but affection without alignment becomes attachment, and attachment can blind you. I refuse to be blinded. Future wife, I didn't protect my heart from love. I protected it for you. Every time I walked away, I was choosing discipline over desire, choosing long-term clarity over short-term comfort, choosing integrity over impulse. Because impulse builds moments, integrity builds forever. There were seasons where loneliness felt louder than conviction, where quiet nights made me question whether patience was worth it, where seeing others build families made me feel behind. But then I would remind myself, being early is better than being wrong. Being patient is better than being regretful. Being disciplined is better than being divided. And I refuse to live divided. Future wife, I don't want to meet you carrying unresolved emotions from someone else. I don't want to look at you and compare you. I don't want to bring confusion into clarity. I want to stand in front of you whole, undivided, certain. That required turning down love that wasn't you, not because those women lacked value, but because our paths didn't align for forever. There were conversations that almost convinced me, moments that felt warm, laughter that felt genuine. But when I asked myself, can I lead her for life? The answer wasn't confident. And leadership without conviction becomes resentment. Resentment erodes love slowly. I refused to plant that seed. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you because I believe in choosing once, completely, not with escape routes, not with silent doubts, not with backup plans, completely. And complete choice requires disciplined filtering beforehand. Every no sharpened my discernment. Every walk away strengthened my standards. Every lonely season matured my patience. I didn't want to meet you emotionally fatigued. I didn't want to meet you half-hearted. I didn't want to meet you uncertain. I wanted to meet you ready. Ready not because I was tired of waiting. Ready because I was confident in alignment. There's something sacred about saying no to what's good in order to wait for what's right. It doesn't look impressive. It doesn't make headlines. It often looks confusing from the outside, but internally it builds strength. Strength in conviction, strength in discernment, strength in patience. Future wife, when I finally meet you and I look at you with certainty, you'll need to understand something. That certainty was built through discipline, through sacrifice, through turning down love that could have worked but wasn't aligned, through choosing peace over pressure, through refusing to compromise my standards, not because I'm rigid, but because forever deserves preparation. I don't believe in collecting almost. I believe in guarding space for alignment. And when you arrive, I won't be comparing you. I won't be questioning timing. I won't be wondering if I settled. I'll know. Not because it's louder, not because it's louder, not because it's more intense, but because it's peaceful. Peaceful in vision, peaceful in values, peaceful in conversation, peaceful in direction. And that peace is what I protected. So if you ever wonder whether I waited intentionally, I did. If you ever wonder whether I walked away from good things to protect something better, I did. If you ever wonder whether you were chosen carefully, you will be, because I didn't protect my heart from love. I protected it for you, and when I choose you, it will be without hesitation, without comparison, without regret, fully, because I turned down love that wasn't you, so that when I say yes to you, it means forever. There's one more truth I need to lay down carefully. Because when people hear I turn down love, they imagine loss. They imagine regret. They imagine missed opportunity. But what I experienced wasn't loss. It was refinement. Every time I walked away from something that wasn't aligned, I didn't lose a future. I gained clarity. Clarity about what I value. Clarity about what I need. Clarity about what peace feels like. Clarity about what it doesn't. Future wife, I didn't walk away from those relationships bitter. I walked away grateful. Grateful that I could recognize misalignment before vows made it permanent. Grateful that I had the courage to choose uncertainty alone rather than certainty with doubt. Grateful that I respected marriage too much to gamble with it. There were moments when walking away hurt, not because it was toxic, but because it was almost stable, almost aligned, almost peaceful, almost aligned, almost as dangerous. Because almost feels close enough to justify, close enough to rationalize, close enough to convince yourself it'll work, but almost eventually exposes itself. And I didn't want to discover misalignment after commitment. I wanted to discover alignment before it. Future wife, every time I said no, I asked myself something important. If I never meet anyone else, would I still feel at peace with this decision? And the answer was always yes, because peace matters more than partnership. Peace matters more than social timelines. Peace matters more than outside pressure. If I have to disturb my peace to keep a relationship alive, then it isn't built to last. There were women who challenged me intellectually, women who admired my drive, women who would have stood beside me proudly. But something in our internal rhythms didn't align. Maybe our emotional speeds were different. Maybe our conflict styles clashed. Maybe our long-term visions diverged slightly. Small things, subtle things, but subtle misalignment compounds over time. I didn't want compound regret. Future wife, I've learned that compatibility isn't about liking the same music or sharing hobbies. It's about how you handle pressure, how you resolve tension, how you treat each other when things aren't ideal, how you speak when frustrated, how you apologize, how you forgive. And when I evaluated those areas, sometimes the answers weren't clear enough. And unclear in dating becomes unstable in marriage. I refused instability. There were seasons where loneliness tested me, where companionship would have been comforting, where having anyone aligned enough, felt tempting. But I asked myself something harder. Would I be proud of this choice 5 years from now? And if there was hesitation in that answer, I walked away. Future wife. I didn't turn down love because I was searching for a fantasy. I turned it down because I respect forever. Forever isn't a feeling. It's a decision built on alignment. It's a commitment that deserves clarity before it's spoken. There were times when I imagined what life would look like if I had said yes to one of those women. And honestly, it might have looked fine. Stable. Functional. Respectable. But deep inside, I would have known I chose comfort over conviction, and I refused to live with silent compromise. You deserve a man who chose you without hesitation, not because other options disappeared, but because other options were evaluated and released. Future wife, turning down love, refined my standards in a way I didn't expect. It taught me the difference between attraction and alignment, between admiration and conviction, between chemistry and compatibility. Chemistry sparks quickly, compatibility builds slowly, conviction remains quietly. I learned to look for the quiet, the calm, the steady, not the loud, not the dramatic, not the intoxicating. There were moments when I thought maybe I was being too disciplined, too calculated, too cautious. But discipline is not fear. Discipline is foresight. And foresight protects futures. Every time I walked away, I strengthened my ability to recognize you. Because with every no, the picture became clearer. Clearer in values, clearer in rhythm, clearer in emotional maturity, clearer in shared vision. Future wife. I don't want to marry someone I admire occasionally. I want to marry someone I respect consistently. Respect in how she handles conflict, respect in how she carries herself, respect in how she speaks about others, respect in how she manages responsibility, respect in how she navigates pressure. And when that respect isn't steady, marriage becomes fragile. So I waited for steady. I didn't want to marry someone I felt uncertain about in small moments, because small uncertainties multiply. I wanted calm conviction. Conviction that doesn't argue with itself at night. Conviction that doesn't require reassurance from friends. Conviction that doesn't need constant emotional validation. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you because I believe in building something once, correctly. Not building repeatedly and hoping one sticks. Not experimenting with forever. Choosing once. And choosing well. That kind of choice requires courage. Courage to disappoint others. Courage to disappoint expectations. Courage to stand alone. Courage to trust timing. I chose courage. There were women who would have made life comfortable, but comfort without alignment leads to quiet dissatisfaction, and quiet dissatisfaction grows. I refuse to grow resentment inside a covenant. Future wife, when I finally meet you, I want my heart to be simple, undivided, clear, ready, not sorting through past emotional entanglements, not healing from avoidable regret, not carrying unresolved attachments. Every love I turned down protected that simplicity, protected that clarity, protected that readiness. I don't see those seasons as wasted time. I see them as training in discernment, training in patience, training in emotional discipline, training in standards. Because when I choose you, I don't want to choose lightly. I want to choose deeply, with understanding, with confidence, with certainty. And certainty is built through comparison, not to people, but to peace. Every relationship I considered, I measured against peace. If it disrupted peace, it wasn't right. If it required mental negotiation, it wasn't right. If it forced compromise in values, it wasn't right. And if it didn't feel calm, it wasn't you. Future wife, I didn't lose anything by walking away. I gained clarity about what forever should feel like, and forever feels steady. Steady in tone, steady in values, steady in loyalty, steady in direction. When I choose you, it won't be because you're the best option available. It will be because you're the aligned option, the peaceful option, the clear option, the one that doesn't require convincing, the one that doesn't argue with my intuition, the one that doesn't disturb my internal calm. I turned down love that wasn't you because I believe love should feel like certainty, not compromise. And when I finally stand in front of you and say, yes, it will carry weight of discipline, weight of patience, weight of conviction, weight of inner V, no, that protected that, yes. You won't be the result of settling. You'll be the result of discernment. And that is why when I choose you, it will be complete. No comparison. No hesitation. No regret. Because I didn't lose love. I refined my vision until it became you. Because turning down love that wasn't you wasn't a dramatic story. It wasn't filled with chaos or heartbreak. It was quiet. It was disciplined. It was intentional. And sometimes the most important decisions in life are the quiet ones. No one applauds. I didn't walk away because I was afraid of commitment. I walked away because I respect commitment too much to misuse it. There's a difference. Commitment isn't something I hand out because it feels good in the moment. It's something I give when I am fully convinced, fully aligned, fully at peace. And that peace never arrived with anyone who wasn't you. Future wife, I need you to understand something clearly. I wasn't searching for a flawless woman. I wasn't comparing everyone to an unrealistic image. I wasn't chasing perfection. I was searching for conviction. Conviction that didn't fluctuate. Conviction that didn't require me to talk myself into it. Conviction that didn't fade when emotions calmed down. There were women who were admirable, women who were intelligent, women who were loyal, women who could have built a good life with me. But good is not the same as right, and right feels different. Right feels settled. Right feels like clarity instead of calculation. Right feels like I don't have to convince myself. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you because I learned to listen to subtle signals, the slight misalignment in vision, the small differences in values, the quiet discomfort in long-term imagination. Not red flags, just yellow lights. And yellow lights deserve attention because ignoring them leads to collisions later. I chose caution before covenant. There were seasons where walking away felt lonely, where I wondered if I was too disciplined, too patient, too selective. But I reminded myself of something powerful. It is better to be alone in peace than partnered in doubt. Doubt is heavier than loneliness. Loneliness fades. Doubt lingers. I didn't want to wake up next to someone and wonder if I had settled. I didn't want to carry quiet questions into a lifelong promise. I wanted to stand in front of my future wife without hesitation, without comparison, without second thoughts. Future wife, every time I said no to someone else, I was saying yes to you, even though I hadn't met you yet. Yes to clarity. Yes to alignment. Yes to discipline. Yes to patience. Yes to peace. I didn't want you inheriting someone who almost committed elsewhere. I didn't want you wondering if I had unfinished emotional business. I didn't want you competing with memories. I wanted to meet you clear, whole, undivided. There were women who would have loved me faithfully. But love alone is not enough. Love must align. It must align in vision, in rhythm, in communication, in discipline, in long-term direction. Because attraction without alignment fades. Affection without foundation fractures. Chemistry without compatibility collapses. I chose compatibility in principle over chemistry in emotion. Future wife, I turned down love that wasn't you because I believe in choosing once, completely. I don't believe in halfway commitment. I don't believe in escape plans. I don't believe in quiet reservations. When I choose fully. But to choose fully, I had to filter honestly. And filtering requires courage. Courage to disappoint people. Courage to walk away from comfort. Courage to endure seasons alone. Courage to trust that alignment exists. There were moments when loneliness whispered compromise. When society's timelines tried to rush me. When watching others marry made me question my patience. But I remembered something deeper. Marriage is not a race. It's a covenant. And covenant deserves readiness. I didn't want to enter marriage hoping feelings would grow into conviction. I wanted conviction before vows. I didn't want to build something functional. I wanted to build something unshakable. Future wife, when I finally recognize you, it won't feel chaotic. It won't feel like adrenaline. It won't feel like trying to convince myself. It will feel like relief. Relief that the waiting refined me. Relief that the discipline protected me. Relief that the clarity paid off. You won't be louder than everyone else. You'll be steadier. You won't overwhelm me with intensity. You'll ground me with peace. You won't require mental negotiation. You'll bring calm conviction. And that calm conviction is what I've been guarding. Every no I said strengthened my ability to say yes without doubt. Every walk away sharpened my discernment. Every lonely season matured by patience. I don't regret those seasons because they built me into someone who doesn't choose impulsively. Someone who doesn't confuse emotion with destiny. Someone who doesn't compromise standards under pressure. Future wife, I didn't reject love. I rejected misalignment. I rejected settling. I rejected building something that would slowly erode. I rejected quiet doubt. And I did it because you deserve better than half-hearted certainty. You deserve to know that when I look at you and say, I choose you, it's not because you were available. It's because you were aligned, aligned with my values, aligned with my values, aligned with my vision, aligned with my peace. And peace is the final filter. If something disturbed my peace, I walked away. If something required constant mental reassurance, I walked away. If something felt forced in long-term imagination, I walked away because I refuse to gamble with forever. Future wife, when I finally meet you, there will be no emotional leftovers, no unresolved attachments, no lingering what ifs, no quiet comparisons, just clarity, just conviction, just certainty. And that certainty will carry weight. It will carry the weight of discipline, the weight of patience, the weight of besintment, the weight of ezerment, the weight of every love I turned down. You won't be a decision made out of exhaustion. You won't be a decision made out of fear. You won't be a decision made out of pressure. You will be a decision made out of peace. And peace doesn't argue. It confirms, it settles, it strengthens, it anchors. I turned down love that wasn't you because I believe in honoring marriage before it begins. I believe in protecting covenant before vows are spoken. I believe in choosing once with conviction. And when I choose you, it will not be hesitant. It will not be uncertain. It will not be divided. It will be full commitment, full loyalty, full commitment, full loyalty, full clarity, full peace. Because I didn't walk away from love. I walked toward alignment, toward conviction, toward you. And when I finally stand beside you, you'll know something. Without me even saying it, I didn't settle, I didn't rush, I didn't compromise. I waited, and that waiting was intentional. For you, for us, for forever.
I have learned that the right beginning doesn't require chaos. It requires clarity. Clarity in communication, clarity in boundaries, clarity in values, clarity in expectations. If this is time, we won't be guessing each other's tension. We'll articulate them. We won't avoid hard conversations. We'll initiate them. We won't rush physical closenesses to manufacture connections. We'll build emotional intimacy first. Because emotional intimacy sustains what physical chemistry alone cannot. Future wife, I don't want you to win you over. I want you to walk beside you. I don't want to embrace you. I want to protect you. I don't want to overwhelm you. I want to steady you. A line doesn't scream, it settles. It feels like coming home to something you don't know you were waiting for. And if this is time, you won't have to force yourself to feel it. You'll feel it in the absence of